All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Bergman. I'm the Director of the Division of Local Government here at the Department of Local Affairs. We're coming to us live from our home office on 1313 Sherman Street in Denver. And welcome to our Local Government Resources Call. This bi-monthly call continues to serve our local communities by providing an access point to DOLA and our partner agencies and timely and relevant updates and resources to support local government operations. Let me go through today's agenda. I will start by providing some general updates with a quick word from Robin DeFalco on the local planning capacity grant and some Proposition 123 updates. Then we'll hear from the Governor's Office of Federal Funding and Strategic Initiatives to go over some federal funding updates. Finally, we'll get into our webinar portion of the call where we will learn about the Colorado Emergency Planning Commission and the role of local emergency planning commissions. You're welcome to put questions in the chat or the Q&A feature as we go along. Any questions that don't get answered by our subject matter experts during the presentation will get addressed at the end. Reminder, we'll be throwing links in the chat, and we'll also send out notes, slides, and recording of the call within a few days. If we miss a link in that chat, just note we will be sending out a summary of the meeting as well as the recording afterwards. So if you don't see a link, don't worry, it will be provided following the meeting. Now, let's get into some general DOLA and partner agency updates. State Demography Office, recap of the SDO Summit. Thank you to everyone who participated in the 2025 State Demography Summit. We covered the most current population and economic estimates and forecasts for the state, its regions, counties, and municipalities. New population estimates and projections are now available, and the summit recording and materials will soon be available on the SDO website. Census Bureau procedure testing and hiring. The Census Bureau is conducting a test of its data collection procedures for the 2030 census in 2026. One of the test sites is located in Colorado Springs to investigate data collection procedures to help ensure a complete count of the population during the 2030 census. The Bureau is recruiting employees from the Colorado Springs area to help conduct the test. 2030 census results will be used to determine your representation in Congress, and they help inform how trillions of dollars are distributed for hospitals, schools, roads, and more. To learn more about the census test and or recruitment information, using the links in the chat. Division of Housing update. Prop 123 support. Division of Housing's Proposition 123 community support team is holding open office hours in November and December. These sessions will provide technical support to jurisdictions in designated regions regarding Prop 123 compliance. The support team already held meetings for the Central and North Central regions. November schedule is available below. You can still register for office hours in the Northeastern region today from 1 to 2 p.m. and for the Northern Mountains on Tuesday, November 25th from 1 to 2 p.m. You can also reach the Prop 123 community support team directly at DOLA_PROP123 support@state.co.us or schedule a one-on-one meeting with the team by visiting the appointment scheduling webpage. And again, we'll provide those in the chat there. Direct support for child care facility projects. DOLA, in partnership with Executives Partnering to Invest in Children, or EPIC, is now offering direct support sessions to help communities and project leaders move child care facility projects forward. These flexible 30-minute technical assistance sessions are designed for projects that are facing time-sensitive milestones or need targeted expert guidance to help support a singular or broad child care facility development project. If your project is eligible, you'll be matched with a technical assistance expert and receive a shared documentation file with notes, resources, and next steps. Please reach out to Housing Development Specialist Aaron McNabb or Matt Long with any questions. Factory-built structures. As part of DOH's implementation of Senate Bill 25-002, which creates regional design criteria for factory-built structures, DOLA convened a technical advisory committee made up of local building officials and industry experts. This group meets biweekly to help streamline rules and boost consistency and resiliency across Colorado's varied climates and communities. The public is welcome to join committee meetings. You can also stay up to date by subscribing to DOLA's Building Codes and Standards newsletter. Division of Local Government, Strategic Growth, Vital Landscapes Report. DLG's Community Development Office released the Colorado Strategic Growth Report and policy recommendations in compliance with Senate Bill 24-174. The report provides a deep look at policies and trends that define growth in Colorado. CDO is also finalizing guidance in the Vital Landscapes Report, also called VLAR, and the Resources Planning Guide as required by Senate Bill 174 to support local governments and regional entities in considering what vital landscapes and resources Colorado protects and connects. To further support local governments and regional entities with meeting the planning requirements in Senate Bill 174, CDO is beginning development of a guidance for strategic growth elements and enhancing existing guidance for water supply elements in comprehensive plans. All will be available in early 2026, with the VLAR completed by the end of this calendar year. Housing Planning Grant Program, it's also known as HPLN, funding cycle is open. The HPLN grant program, which offers funding to support housing needs assessments, housing action plans, and comprehensive plan elements, is open through Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. Interested applicants should review eligibility and guidelines on the HPLN webpage and may also fill out a 1-minute survey or email the HPLN program manager to discuss their project. Deadline approaching, Neighborhood Centers Pilot Round. The deadline for the pilot round of the Neighborhood Center program is Friday, November 21st, 2025. This is an opportunity for communities to participate in assisting the state in refining neighborhood center criteria so that the criteria is responsive to local and regional contexts. Participating communities can also achieve early designation of neighborhood centers as state agencies begin to consider these designations in their grant prioritization criteria. To start the process, log into the DOLA Land Use Implementation Portal to fill out the form. From the Colorado Resiliency Office, the CRO Framework Update. Last Thursday, the Colorado Resiliency Office wrapped up their third and final summit for the 2025 Colorado Resiliency Framework Update, a state interagency plan that outlines strategies and actions to make Colorado more prepared for the future. On behalf of DOLA and the CRO, thank you to everyone who has participated in the public engagement process over the last 4 months. There will be another opportunity to provide input in early 2026 before the final framework will be released in the spring. You can opt into our contact list for ongoing updates using the link provided in the chat. Rural Economic Development Initiative. Since we will not be meeting again before 2026, the next funding round of the Rural Economic Development Initiative, or READY as we call it, will run from January 7th through February 4th, 2026. This program is designed to help rural communities comprehensively diversify their local economy and create a more resilient Colorado. Monthly peer exchanges. Join the Community Development Office tomorrow at 9 a.m. for a monthly peer exchange series, which supports local governments working on affordable housing strategies and land use issues. November's topic covers the middle income housing tax credit. You can register for Housing Peer Exchange using the link provided in the chat. The Division of Fire Prevention and Control, in partnership with DLG's Colorado Resiliency Office, has a monthly Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code implementation peer exchange for adoption of the recently released CRWC, which is the Wildfire Resiliency Code. Please register to attend and receive peer exchange related email updates. Note, the meetings are not open to the general public. The peer exchange is for implementing agencies and partners only. The next CWRC peer exchange is on December 3rd from 2 to 3 p.m. I will now introduce Robin DeFalco, Program Manager for the Proposition 123 Local Planning Capacity Grant, with some important updates about this program. Take it away, Robin.
Thanks, Eric. We're excited to announce that following the November 1st deadline across Colorado, 217 local and tribal governments have pledged to increase affordable housing through Prop 123 by increasing affordable housing units by a combined total of 22,988 affordable housing units and to implement a 90-day expedited review process for affordable housing projects. And in order to support local governments with Prop 123 implementation efforts, the Local Planning Capacity Grant Program was established to increase the capacity of local government planning departments to address affordable housing goals, especially to streamline the development review process, but it can also help with other planning related work that supports affordable housing goals. The next funding cycle for the Local Planning Capacity Grant Program will open January 26th through February 26th of 2026. Interested applicants will need to schedule a pre-application meeting with the LPC program staff. And I really want to underscore that if your community needs support with implementing the fast track requirements in Prop 123, this February funding cycle is really your last chance to get grant funding in time for implementation efforts to be effective before the statutory deadline, which is December 31st of 2026. So if grant funding is needed to help your community with fast track or anything related to Prop 123, please make sure to apply by this February and reach out to me for that pre-application meeting. Our top priority for funding award decisions is to support your local government efforts to implement fast track. So don't miss that deadline. There is a webinar on January 8th. You can register from the website. One last quick announcement is that the Prop 123 funding distribution dashboard was recently updated. This dashboard is an interactive map that shows Prop 123 funding award data through September of 2025. It offers a detailed view of how Prop 123 funds are distributed across the state and includes maps showing award amounts per county, per person, and funding by program. And as a reminder, the funding distribution figures are estimates based on award data, and we will continue to update these quarterly. Back over to you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Robin. We will now turn it over to Tara Caruth from the Governor's Office to provide the latest from the federal level. Tara, are you there?
I am. Thanks, Eric.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
Good to see you all. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Eric. I'm Tara Caruth, a strategy officer with the Governor's Office of Federal Funds and Strategic Initiatives. First of all, I wanted to announce that I, like many of my colleagues, am taking a position at DOLA and starting December 2nd. And so I'm going to be working with the Office of Homeless Initiatives, really excited, and wanted to introduce Eva Branson, who I believe is on as well. Eva is a new member of our team. She is a local government federal funding advisor, and she's going to be partnering with DOLA, the governor's office, and local governments to help with capacity needs, especially as we are navigating all of the complexities with federal funding. I see Eva's on camera now. Eva, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, hi everybody. I think Tara covered it pretty well, but I am here at the governor's office to be a resource to all of you as you navigate federal funding, both pre-award and post-award. So looking forward to hopefully working with a lot of you.
Thanks so much, Eva. And then if you all want to go to the next slide, I just have a brief update. I know you all know, but HR 5371 passed. That's a continuing resolution. The federal government is funded through the end of January. So just really want to encourage folks, if you have active awards, that you haven't been able to access funds, make your drawdown requests. If you have pending agreements, take advantage of while the government is open and functioning to get those awards, and fingers crossed that appropriations pass and there is not another shutdown at the end of January, early February. We will keep you all updated as we learn more, but that's the only real update I have at this time. Just as a side, there is You may be hearing at the local government level about the HUD Continuum of Care grants. Those were announced and are pretty concerning with deprioritizing permanent housing interventions. So more to come there, but encourage you to engage with your local continuum of care if you have questions or concerns about those funds. That's all I have today. Turn it back over to you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Tara. Congratulations. Welcome to the DOLA family. We look
Thank
forward to
you.
working with you on a more, well, we've already worked with you on a regular basis, but now we'll
Yeah.
be right down the hall from each other. So I'm very excited.
That's right.
So
Thank you.
phenomenal news. All right. Now we're going to get over onto our webinar on the Colorado Emergency Planning Commission and the role of local emergency planning committees in environmental and HAZMAT events. Our speaker today is Tim Gabelhaus, who is an attorney focused on planning and management of environmental compliance, emergency planning, loss prevention, and corrective action projects. Counselor, the virtual floor is yours, and thank you for joining us today.
Most certainly. Why don't you go ahead and give me the next slide? Excellent. So, Colorado Emergency Planning Commission is a creature of state law, but it exists to administer a federal statute called the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act. The big deal for the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act is the creation of local emergency planning committees, which in this state we do by county, on a county basis, although we do some regional local emergency planning committees and some city-based ones. The whole idea here is we're trying to create a body that is both citizens as well as emergency responders and businesses to better work on community preparedness. The meaningful involvement in emergency planning is the key element here. The information that is collected from facilities about their hazardous chemical inventories is intended to be public and publicly available. The local emergency planning committees can utilize this data to actually generate a map. It's just a Google Earth map that shows locations of these facilities in relationship to any other layer you want to add, and especially transportation routes. The next thing that we're involved in is working on capabilities assessments. Right now, about ready to finish a report on hazardous materials response capability assessments for transportation-related incidents, both rail as well as truck. Many of you will be aware of the fact that there was a rail HAZMAT bill that's been gone through the General Assembly. That contained a number of studies. Those studies have been delayed into 27 due to budget limitations. We managed to find enough money to do parts of that study, and that report will get issued out when I get my act together here sometime later this month. The other big thing we're working on these days is understanding that civil rights claims for inadequate emergency planning are becoming more and more common. In the aftermath of significant incidents, we see lots of situations where people that are protected from civil rights point of view or Americans with Disabilities Act are suing local governments for failure to do adequate planning. A lot of these cases originated from Katrina and have continued along. They have been brought against Colorado agencies, and they have been threatened against Colorado agencies. So it's a real life thing. The big problem is one of public expectations. If you go out and ask people what they think happens if they call 911, or what they think happens in a significant incident, what you will discover is that their expectations are way out of line with reality. The vast bulk of firefighters in this state are volunteers. The vast bulk of people responding to hazardous materials incidents are volunteers, and they do not have the same level of training or equipment that you see in the metro area. So if you're in the metro area, you see robust fire protection. You see news reports on hazardous materials incidents where you'll see apparatus on scene trying to deal with the incident. If you go anywhere outside of the metro front range, that's not reality. And those capabilities really don't exist. You don't have the same levels of training, and most certainly don't have the same levels of equipment. The commission is made up of some statutory members. Emergency management and the health department emergency management groups are co-chairs. Division of Fire Protection and Control, Division of Local Government, and the Colorado State Patrol are also statutory members. The rest of the commission is made up of the people listed on the slide. I have been on this commission since the late 80s, which only means that initially a whole lot of governors obviously didn't read my resume correctly. And these days the appointments are coming out of Department of Public Safety. I currently sit in the Local Emergency Planning Committee seat. So next slide. So to have some sense of who I am so you can decide if you want to pay any attention to what I'm saying, you can glance through this. The key element here is the UN Handbook on Emergency Preparedness called APEL. That document is written to be a planning guide for local emergency planning committees. And we hold an annual training session with local emergency planning committees every year in the fall, and hope to be able to continue to do that even given shortfalls in federal funding. So next slide. So right now, if you go out and look in the emergency management world, what you're going to see is an awful lot of concern. So give me the next slide. So here's the basic reality if I look at emergency management. There are fewer people. Positions are being eliminated. Federal budgets, federal grant programs have been cut. The Attorney General has been involved in litigation on terms and conditions for some of these grant programs, where basically getting the grant program was tied to cooperation with ICE or the elimination of DEI programs. And we're currently operating under a system where you've got preliminary injunctions rather than permanent injunctions. And so the actual availability of the money is somewhat uncertain. A number of local governments have done hiring freezes, they've done reductions in force. And I have seen several situations where either part-time or other folks in emergency management are no longer employed in those roles. The vast bulk of money for equipment, and it's very specialized equipment, for hazardous materials response, air monitoring, for example, and then the personal protective equipment that firefighters and others use for these incidents, has a shelf life. It doesn't last forever, and right now we're having a lot of trouble across the state with replacing that equipment, and we certainly don't see availability of new equipment. What that means is that the actual hazmat response capabilities across the state are degrading and have degraded a lot. What we're capable of responding to, either from a rail or a truck incident point of view, is not as good as it used to be. And we are certain that at some point you're going to get a bad day where there will be an awful lot of 2020 hindsight criticism of responders and planning activities, and anticipate that that's going to result in litigation. We have come preciously close to significant civil rights litigation in the aftermath of things like the Marshall Fire and other significant incidents. The litigation that has occurred tends to be against people like Excel and others rather than civil rights, but it's just a matter of time. So give me the next slide. So there is, in fact, a civil right to meaningful involvement in emergency planning. And I would be happy to talk to anybody afterwards if you want to have a conversation on what that means. That is different than saying there's a civil right in adequate emergency response. That's not true. Local governments are not required to maintain a certain level of response. The way to think about that is planning, therefore, has to consider what the capabilities are and what the capabilities are not in a community. And planning must involve the community when we're talking about what individuals, small business owners, and others need to do to protect themselves and their families when local government response capacity does not exist. In other words, we need to be really honest about what we can't do. That is a hard conversation. I've been involved in a whole bunch of council and commissioner study sessions where you're having that conversation, and it's very uncomfortable. Nonetheless, it's a necessary conversation, because if we're not creating appropriate expectations, we're going to disappoint people. What we want local governments to do is use local emergency planning committees, which again are sort of citizen groups, to show planning success by handling the broad-scale stakeholder involvement. Emergency managers, many of whom are part-time in this state, fire chiefs, many of whom are volunteers, just don't have the bandwidth to go out and do the community engagement that really is necessary to demonstrate success in the planning process. Local emergency planning committees are an excellent tool in that regard, and we have a number of examples across the state where they have been effectively used by emergency managers, fire departments, and others to perform these functions. We want to measure success in the planning process, and not in the aftermath of the last bad day, because again, in 2020 hindsight, almost always fails. We want to measure success by filling capability gaps. And that means education, awareness, creating appropriate expectations with members of the community so that they understand the actions that they need to take. And so in order to properly protect themselves. Filling capability gaps is something that you can measure and you do have some control over and can demonstrate that you're trying to run an effective planning process. Local emergency planning committees are recognized as being very important to this process, primarily because the federal statute is community right to know. It means it forms the basis for education of the public on what the risks are in the community. Right now, we do a not very good job in telling people what bad things can happen. Many of you will have been involved in county government emergency management efforts to update planning under FEMA guidance. That's all well and good, except for the fact that rarely do you get general public involvement in that, and rarely do you get education and awareness that results from that in terms of giving the public some idea of what they need to do. So give me the next slide. All right, we want emergency managers and LEPCs to practice self-defense here in the context of limited federal funding and increasing public expectations. You need to go out and find some new money to buy equipment, to send people away for training, and otherwise provide the sort of resources that are necessary. We have had success in creating small local nonprofits, 501c3s, that are raising several $1,000s locally to stay locally in support of these functions. I would be happy to talk to you more about it. But these groups have been pretty successful around the state in raising money that is not otherwise available. And as you all recognize, even when you can get federal grants, they come with lots of limitations on what you can use the money for. Fortunately, if you use the nonprofit approach, you don't have that problem. and the money is potentially available for other things you need. We want you to use the LEPCs to do outreach to local leaders and the public. The nice thing about LEPCs is they're not writing checks for anything. They're not they're not an organization you can point your finger at and said it's your job to fix it. They are a kind of organization that has information, can share that information, and be a good location for the conversation about what the community's priorities ought to be and how to go forward. We really are recommending in-person kind of conversations to create these expectations, where you can sit with people where they are when they're there, evenings, weekends, sometime other than 10 o'clock on Wednesdays, when you really can reach out and get people in the community involved, especially people that are non-English speaking, folks that are not part of, they're part of a fairly limited social group because of either faith-based issues or language-based issues. It's important to reach out to those folks. So give me the next slide, please. I love the pickup truck in the tree. It's not my picture. I'll have to find out where it came from. But the great big new risk is land use planning and zoning and civil rights violations. Historically, land use planning and zoning has not been a very firm basis for civil rights issues. What you've got is a case going forward in Louisiana right now that's clearly intended to make law in this arena. What you've got is a parish government that was alleged to have been siting chemical facilities only in the poor parts of town, especially areas that were primarily minority and non-English speaking. There was definitely a pattern and practice there. They also were citing chemical facilities near churches attended by those folks. This case was brought back in 23, and of course the trial court dismissed it for failure to show standing. Trial courts do this all the time when the legal issues are unsettled, and they want everybody to go off to the Court of Appeals to figure out what the law is before they spend a lot of time and energy on it. So they went off to the Fourth Circuit, and the Fourth Circuit reinstated the case earlier this year. The parish folks attempted to appeal this to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rejected that appeal in October. So that case will now proceed in Louisiana. Depending on where it goes, this will be the first time you get court decisions that say local governments can violate people's civil rights by exposing them to chemical hazards, even when the hazard hasn't actually occurred and when people have not been directly harmed. This could apply to not only hazardous chemicals, but also natural hazards. The implications are broad, frankly, and they deal with things like, explosion risks of factories that end up harming people that weren't even there. They've moved to the hazard over time. When the facility has been someplace out in the middle of nowhere for an extended period of time, and growth of the community brought people towards it. Many examples of that over time. This case would sort of stand for the proposition that indeed those individuals may have an action against the local government for civil rights violations in those cases. So you can give me the next slide. So what we want to do is see planning process that meaningfully involves people, and that means you have to start with education about what the risks are, what things are there, and that can include all hazards, but it also should include things like the chemical plants, the people storing chemicals. A lot of these are not big facilities, but they will have large quantities of materials. And then identifying capabilities. And capabilities are not just the fire department. It is local folks in the community. It's the walk down Main Street and ask people if they have a first aid kit. Do they have water and food? If somebody told them they had to shelter in place overnight or something like that, could they do it? Do they have any idea how to do it? That's the assessment of capabilities, kind of stuff we're talking about. And then we want to fill capability gaps. And lots of times those capability gaps can be filled with education, creating awareness. They can be filled with first aid courses in high schools. There are 1,001 ways to do it. But you need to evaluate whether, in fact, you did fill the gap. And that means exercises. That means doing tabletops and other things in the field. And we have a bad habit of doing those someplace where the public can't see them. And the primary reason for that is exercises are designed to demonstrate when things don't work and then give you an opportunity to fix them. We need instead to be involving people in these exercises. That means if we're doing something for specialized evacuations of individuals with mobility problems, we need to design an exercise that includes them to see if our plans will work. You have to remember availability of services is not the standard. It's actual access to services. And that may be translation services, shelter services, transportation services, any number of things that local governments provide. We need to actually demonstrate that the people they're targeted to can use them. There have been a number of cases across the country where local governments were found to have violated people's civil rights because they did not involve them in an exercise or an opportunity to demonstrate whether access to the services existed rather than just simply availability. This requires very active work. You have to go to people. And as I said before, emergency managers, fire departments tend not to have the bandwidth to do this, especially in rural areas. That's why using local emergency planning committees to do this makes a lot of sense and makes it hopefully more effective. Next slide. So, one of the key elements here is to tell people how stuff works. We don't often go out in this society and talk to people about what an incident command system is, or what personal protective equipment is, or what air monitors are, or how they work. We don't tell people how this system that's designed to protect them functions. And that's a problem because it misrepresents the expectations and creates a lot of doubt. We need to be talking to people about the kinds of services they think are going to be there and what's really not going to be there. You know, immediate response does not exist in most of this state. Okay? You're frequently going to get two people in a pickup truck with a dog and a fire extinguisher rather than the robust sort of emergency response they see on TV. And that is a problem that we need to fix. Next slide. So here's how you get sued. And these are real examples and nasty letters that I've read from both Colorado and other places. So failing to involve non-English speaking communities is a huge one right now, especially in Colorado. A lot of people, a lot of local governments, emergency management are anticipating using internet-based translation services, not only for alert and warning, but also to talk to people in shelters or otherwise. Vast bulk of those are garbage and do not work very well. If you're not testing them with the community you're trying to talk to, that's a problem. And that basically means you have to go to them and do a demonstration and see if it makes sense. The other thing that we're finding across the state that works real well are high school kids that are second generation. They have credibility in the community, which is super critical in being able to communicate. They also will understand the language, and they're able to communicate stuff in a way that makes sense to the people they're talking to. They understand the social issues. They understand how that community functions. That's not something you can do very readily online. So I would definitely recommend to folks to hang around the high schools and see who's there in terms of a non-English speaking community. If you don't test plans, then you can't demonstrate they work. And that's the fundamental problem. If we don't test these things, we don't try them out involving people, that we can't prove that access exists. And then the Americans with Disabilities Act issue. An awful lot of local folks don't want to run exercises with people in wheelchairs. They don't want to run exercises with people that are not otherwise the beneficiaries of services under the ADA. Please do that. It's difficult, I know, but honestly, you need to engage those people to have any sense of how it works. Oh, thank you for throwing up the, whoever did it, threw up the appel guide link. I appreciate that. Next slide. So, if you have questions, this is not the best format to do tons of questions. If you want follow-up or you want more information, there's my email. Please use it. There's my phone number as well. I will routinely get a whole bunch of questions from folks in the aftermath of this kind of presentation that begin with, I have a friend that has a question. That's fine. Happy to answer your friend's question as well. A lot of this stuff is fairly complicated. It's very messy. If you want background information, just yell. I'll be happy to get you there. If your local LEPC needs help, yell. The CPC goes out and meets with LEPCs and local governments all the time. And you can get a member of the CPC showing up for meetings. And so we do that all over the state. So thank you all.
Great. Tim, thank you so much. I know we've been answering questions in the chat and on the Q&A as we've gone on here. Are there questions for Tim from the group? If so, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A function at the bottom there. Or and again, you have Tim's information, his email and phone as well, if you would like to follow up with him one-on-one as well. Let me just,
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. And frankly, lots of times it's just easier to do that.
Yeah,
so
sure.
If you
It's
have
more
a question,
it's more conversational than it is just like more back and forth, or as we call the capital, permission to dialogue. They would try to call to the same person repeatedly, and finally they're like, okay, just you guys can go back and forth for a while.
Sure. I'm happy to do that at anybody's convenience. Drop me a note.
One of the questions I see here is there funding to promote these efforts?
Well, here's the bear. The big funding sources are either much reduced or unavailable because of litigation over the terms and conditions. That's why the idea of creating nonprofits locally to raise money to do this stuff has been of great interest. I'll be presenting on that at the Colorado Emergency Management Association conference in February, and routinely we present on it. And I've also helped half a dozen folks locally in Colorado and a few other states to create these nonprofits. And usually you can raise a few $1,000s locally in an unrestricted fashion, which makes an enormous difference.
Great, thank you for that, and thank you for the question, Rita. All right, I'm not seeing any other. Oh, Tim, do you have a question?
No.
Oh,
I was waving.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank Tim and our other speakers today for joining us. There was a lot of information today. Reminder that we will be following up with a meeting recording as well as materials will be sent out, including notes and Q&A, and I believe also Tim's PowerPoint presentation, if I'm not mistaken. So we want to thank you all for joining us. Thank our speakers again for making the time today. Our next call is tentatively on February 18th. We're pushing out after the holidays. We have our SMART Act hearing in January that we'll be preparing for. So our next local government call is tentatively scheduled for February 18th. Stay tuned for topic announcements for that call. In the meantime, we want to thank all of you for joining us. We wish you a very safe and pleasant Thanksgiving holiday next week, and hope you get a chance to spend time with family and friends. And again, we thank you for joining us today, and we will see you in the new year. So thank you all very much, and happy holidays.